Hello everyone, this is the LightSpeed 2.5 from PocketQuads. Featuring an F4 flight controller with an OSD, 10-amp 4-in-1 ESC, Runcam Nano, Eagle Power SA1104 7000 kV motors, Gem Fan 2540 props, the AKK X5 video transmitter with smart audio. It weighs 48.92 grams. I flew it with these batteries. This is a very interesting machine, and I have to take a moment here to just kind of show appreciation for not only Ryan of PocketQuads, but all these people that tend to challenge tradition and think differently and say why not, and they're the ones that continue to move this hobby forward, and we get to reap those benefits of people taking risks and challenges and deciding to make something happen that they want to happen. Being able to 3D print, that gives us a lot of flexibility to add flair, to add customization. You know, we could possibly see other colors of this. And speaking of this frame, before we get too far, go ahead and before we even get into any of my opinion, leave your comment below. From what you've seen so far with the flight performance, what are your thoughts? Or, you know, no, I don't think I would buy. I'm too worried about durability. Or, yes, take my money now. Or, I would rather see metal screws for mounting purposes. Or, I'd like to see a design change. Just leave. This is your opportunity to leave some feedback. I'm sure Ryan's going to be around. He'll probably comment down below. If you don't want to do it here, I'll link the RCGroups thread down below as well, so you can follow that, and you can leave a comment there if you want to type something in a little bit longer, or you want to include images or design schematics that you might have, whatever your case may be. All those things we can't do here on YouTube. But give us some feedback, and I think that's very important as well, because here's someone who's going out really on a limb, and he's produced a product that I think is pretty good, and I had a good time flying it, and I think it's probably worth your money. But my opinion only matters to the slightest degree. Your opinion matters a whole lot more. With this frame, I'm not here to discuss the filament or anything like that. And quite frankly, I didn't ask Ryan what the filament was. But I can tell you it's flexible. Let me flex it this way to make sure it's safe. Hopefully you can see that. And one of his primary concerns was if I would notice when I was flying it, if the arms flexed or not. And I didn't. I actually, that didn't even come up in our first few email exchanges. I was asking other questions about the components and what is this? I didn't recognize this. And he told me, and I was like, I can't believe that you got this receiver in here. And yes, the receiver is in there and it's all cup printed, or there's something over this. I don't know. And you can see the button right there. When you plug in the battery, you can still press the button without having to damage or poke a hole or anything through this. And I was really surprised. There's a lot of fine tuning. You'll notice that the only metal screws we have here hold the two halves together. I think, yeah, if we look down in that hole, you see the black spots, those are metal screws. I believe they're metal screws. I haven't taken them out to look. But you'll notice he did something very interesting. He used nylon to mount the motors. He also used nylon to mount the props. And I asked about that, and he originally said that he was leaning back towards metal, but then he found a good source for the nylon and found that it saved a little bit of weight, so that's something he chose to do. And as you can see in my model, the only nylon damage that I had was this screw head got stripped off somehow, and so I would need to take these others out, pull the motor out to get that rest of that screw bed out, just use a hand tool on that. You know, I didn't have any real problems with it. You know, the funny thing about this is you get something that's kind of new and different. I don't know really what to tell you about it other than it flies well. I have learned through Ryan's video that I am very hard on batteries, because I told him, I was like, I'm only getting about 2 minutes of flight on this battery. Is that what you're getting? And he's like, no. So I started watching more closely in my video, and thankfully in the video I did include in the OSD the throttle value, and I could see that I was kind of on the throttle. So it hovers around 20 to 25 on the throttle, and most of the time I'm somewhere near 30 to 40. And then you have those punch outs, or you have hard turns where you get up into 60. So yeah, I'm hard on batteries. And so if you saw that flight time and you thought, oh, it's only 2 minutes, unless you fly just like I do, in the way I do, at the altitude I do, and the humidity I do, and all those other environmental issues, it's very likely that you're probably going to find you can get more flight time. Now with that, I also flew, like when I stated in the quick roll, with these two G&B batteries, and actually found this 350 performed worse than the Nanotech, or the Nanotech performed better, however you want to phrase that. And that surprised me a little bit, because you know I've been a fan of the G&B batteries, but in this case the Nanotech has beaten it out. As I discussed with Ryan, I don't have a positive history with Nanotech batteries. I initially had a bunch of them, and I found that after a certain number of flights they really fell off hard and you had to get rid of them. They didn't fall off gradually. It was all of a sudden it's just they ran out of gas. And these I don't think are there yet, obviously, because they outperformed this. So if you're looking for longer flight time, what I can tell you is I flew with this, and quite honestly I barely noticed a difference. I think if I did a hard 180 turn at speed, I noticed it a little bit, but I really had to look for it when I was flying with this battery. And in the flight video you didn't see this battery. I just did some testing after I was pretty well done flying it as far as for the video purposes. But so this is another viable battery, and I thought it performed well, and I got almost a minute more flight time with this battery. Let's weigh them up to see what the difference is. Let's start with the Nanotech, 17.27 grams. Now the 350 G&B, 24.84 grams, so substantially heavier just from those two, 28.99. And I can attribute my lack of feel for that extra weight has to do with this machine is so light, and it has 2.5-inch props. And these motors, you know, I've never used these motors before, but I'm told Ryan had these custom made for his purposes, and I was pretty impressed. Quite honestly, they're smooth. I don't hear a lot of rattle. You know, I've banged these around, and I didn't, you know, really have any problems with them as far as their performance goes. They're 1104s, and they're not especially the highest of kV, you know, 7,000 kV. That's kind of in the mid-range, and I enjoyed my time with it. I'll probably continue to fly it. I'll probably use the 450 batteries because I am so hard on it. Let's talk about some of the things that you might be concerned about. One is the rubber bands down here at the bottom. I know he continues to look for a better source. He's also beefed up the frame since this iteration, so durability, even though I smack this thing around quite a bit, your durability with your frame, or if you buy a bind and fly, which you can get a fully built up unit just like this. I think the current list price is $179. You may balk at that, but you need to understand that this is going to be, you know, built by one person. Therefore, the quality of the build is going to be different than if you're building 100 in a day like we see in a lot of larger manufacturing concepts. Mine held up well. Outside of that nut that got stripped off, the nut head, where did that one right there? I don't know if this is going to come through in camera. Maybe it does. Right here. See that little bulge right here? I don't know how that happened. I actually didn't notice it until late one night I was looking at it. And it's just some of the filament split apart. And I asked Ryan, I was like, what's the thing to do? And I'm saying Ryan a lot, sorry. This is just how it went. You know, I kept talking to him. Should I just use glue on that, or is there something else you would recommend? Because I just used hot glue or super glue on other 3D prints, and it didn't have any bad effect, but I didn't know if this filament, if the super glue would be toxic for it or not. But he said, yeah, just put some super glue on there. So I did, and now it's back and it's fine. I forgot to wrap it in parchment paper. So if you're using super glue on something and you want to squeeze it together, wrap it in parchment paper or wax paper. Like in this case, I would have used just a little strip and maybe some electrical tape after I got my glue on there, let it harden up. That wax paper or parchment paper won't stick. The super glue won't stick to it, doesn't adhere to it. Don't know why, but it doesn't. So that's the worst damage I've had. I don't know how many flights I've had. I forgot to look at my DVR totals. I could tell you that I flew this when it was below 40, and I crashed it when it was below 40. And it didn't break. I also flew it. I had one really nice day. It was like 62 degrees and there wasn't that much wind. In the flight footage you saw, there was a breeze and it was about 10 miles an hour. Although, you know, low on the ground and in my backyard, that's the official reading. So I would say it was probably actually less than that in the flying area. But still, it handled the wind just fine. I didn't really notice it. I did fly it much higher wind days, and you could feel it. Once the wind starts to really penetrate your flying area at, say, 15 miles an hour, somewhere around there, I'm just guesstimating, you're going to notice it. And it's not specific to this, it's a physics issue. You know, you only have so much weight and power and thrust to keep you to hold your line, and when you have an outside force such as wind, it can only combat that so much. So if you live in an extraordinarily windy area that, you know, blows 90% of the time, this might not be the best option for you. But I think in general, in most flying situations, it's going to fly just fine. I know that through the process, there's an RC group thread, which I'll link down below if you're interested in reading about some of the developments in the community. And I should mention that one or more of you advocated that I review this, and so Ryan reached out to me when he was apparently ready to make a review. So I thank you for advocating for that. That thread will walk you through some of the iterations. And one of the changes was after the RunCam Nano came out. Now, I know that Benedict over at Micromoto Warehouse did a video about the Nanos, and his Nanos were either burning out or fogging up or something. It wasn't clear to me. Sometimes I'm multitasking. But that doesn't seem to be the case. I don't know if this is a secondary run or if Benedict got a bad batch, but my camera was fine all the time. There wasn't a problem with it. It does have an improved image over what you would see traditionally with these really tiny, small CMOS cameras. I think if you buy a frame and you want to build it up yourself, it'll be a good challenge, but I wouldn't want to shy anybody away from it. I'm a firm believer that with enough patience and effort that anything can be accomplished. And as you can see there, it's very tight inside, but it can be done. And we're very fortunate we live at a time that all these components are so dang small that we can make products just like this. I want to thank Ryan for the opportunity to take a look at his LightSpeed 2.5. I enjoyed it. I had a good time. If you have any comments, questions, suggestions, or otherwise about this guy, please leave that in the section down below. I appreciate your time, and thanks for watching.